All right. I believe this means we are live. Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tech fans of all shapes and sorts and sizes and persuasions, welcome to another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. I'm Juan Carlos Bagnell, aka Some Gadget Guy, the SGG of this terribly named podcast series, but the QA is the important part, stands for question and answer. We like to make this an interactive conversation. I like to kick off my podcast on a Monday. We get the whole week to sort out our feels on the news that happened before. Maybe some news broke over the weekend. We get our tech week started off right. And as is tradition on this podcast, I'm finally trying to get back to the flow of how we do this monthly. It's the last Monday of the month. It's the last Monday of April, which is wild. Both like how fast the year is going and how long everything feels. Like this month was the longest year of my life, and yet it still went by in the blink of an eye. Just the constant drumbeat of news and drama. I'm sure a lot of people are feeling just kind of overwhelmed. So we're going to keep this week's show really casual. I do have a couple news stories that I want to chat out. We're still going to do a little housekeeping. But wherever the chat decides that we want to take this conversation, you just want to spend 2 hours, kind of sharing your thoughts and feelings on retro-inspired headphones, we could end up there. So it's kind of an unknown. I hope everybody out there had a lovely weekend. Already seeing some great faces in the chat. Had a little conversation starting off with Simon Says Hypno and Jimmy Fire Dragon. We got Gadget Goddess saying hey to Jimmy. What's up, GG? Glad to see you in the chat. We got Ron GKP saying what up, everybody. Got Georgie. Hello, everyone. Coming for the first 45 minutes. Have a great week. Always glad that you can drop by and say hey. We got Georgie, got Gadget. We got Michael C2 just giving us a thumbs up. Thumbs up there back. And Darcy Castleman. The days are long, but the years are short. No joke. Oh, man. My brain is having a hard time with all this. We got Mr. Maug saying good morning, afternoon. We've got H2O Taku saying, hello, the last podcast of April means spring will soon arrive in Canada. 3 more weeks. 3 more weeks. Mr. Maug saying we should definitely talk about the X2 Elite. I still have not gotten my hands on anything to test. Companies are being very thrifty right now with that kind of review hardware. And I'm reaching out and I'm trying to chat and I'm really trying not to buy every single thing we need to review. There's a limited amount of budget for picking up all that extra gear, but I need to play with one. Again, I love my Surface Laptop 7. We've got to see what this looks like. And by the time I get my hands on one, everyone will have decided that ARM computers are not worth it for the monies and only if it's an Apple. You'll have like Steve and Wendell. Well, I mean, this is better performance per watt and it's pretty high performance, but it doesn't have this Intel thing. So I don't see why anyone would ever get one of these. Instead, if we're going to talk about ARM, it needs to be a 200 core server ARM system for businesses. And that's the only thing that's worth it to talk about for ARM. Because I'm Wendell. Wendell doesn't talk like that. I really shouldn't do. I need to come up with a better Wendell impersonation. Oh, Michael C2. This is absolutely, yeah, from Michael C2. Interestingly, the last generation Copilot PCs are maybe the best deal in the laptop space right now, cheaper than a Neo, 16 gigs of RAM, touchscreens typically. This is what's like so hilarious about when I do a review, I put it out there. I use MSRP as a way to rank. Just the manufacturers making a claim that this computer is worth this much money. So that's where I rank them. Then I try to go out of my way to say, you should never buy at MSRP. Right now, we're seeing like some incredible deals outside of Microsoft, where the configuration that I bought for my Surface Laptop 7, I felt like a schmuck. I bought my Surface Laptop 7, and with the care package, I want to say it was a $2,500 laptop. That was too much. I would admit the 64 gig configuration of this machine, not worth it, except for the most narrowly focused, this person needs a ton of RAM kind of situation. You should not have bought what I bought. Now, without the X2 chip, Microsoft has like raised that another $1,000, and the care package doubled. So when I bought it, it was like $75 for an extra 2 year extended warranty. Now it's like $150 for the same warranty, and the machine itself costs like $3,500, which is insane. Now you step outside of that and go pick yourself up an Asus or an HP, or I think there was another one that we said that had a really good deal on it. Now I can't remember. Regardless, now those systems, like, you can find them real cheap, and they're real good. So I know we're all hyped for X2, but this is a kind of the perfect scenario of, unless you specifically need this kind of GPU compute performance uplift, if you can get a good deal on a first generation Snapdragon X, you get all the benefits and a machine that's kind of roughly hanging with that first generation Core Ultra, like the 165H. I have a new laptop that is running an older chip, and it has the Intel 165H, and you're like, these are great. Like, simpatico, they're compatible. From John Gow, did you put in an order for an X9 Ultra? I have not. I really want to finish my coverage on the X300 Ultra, and I have 2 more videos that I am seriously, like, I've got to put these together. I'm falling into the trap of using the phone more than I'm reviewing it, and I am pulling myself out of that to really focus on just getting that done. Like, for example, GSM Arena just published their unboxing of the X300 Ultra. And I know the X9, the Find X9, the Find X9. I can't, too many numbers and letters and stuff. The Oppo is getting all the attention right now. And it's cool. It's a quad camera system. I really feel people are sleeping on what has made the Ultra, the Vivo Ultra, an interesting evolution over the X200 Ultra, and where you might fit in camera performance, production. We're going to talk about that a little bit. I've got something to share just in really using it, but I'm going to be late to the Oppo. There's just no way around it, and unfortunately, I can't seem to strike up any kind of conversation or relationship with the folks at Oppo. I think I'm just labeled a OnePlus reviewer, and because I'm American, they don't seem to want any additional coverage, which is weird. I mean, my biggest audience share right now is India. For Mr. Maug, I have the Asus ZenBook A16 and regularly play Cyberpunk on whisper mode on this. Georgie, we had 20 degrees Celsius this Saturday, so first barbecue for the year. I love it. I love it when you can kind of shake things up like that. Now we're getting into the dangerous spot where, as we hit summer, we're going to start hitting like high Fahrenheit in freedom temperature units. We're going to start hitting high 90s, low 100s. And it's a totally different situation. Like, if we can't make it out to the beach, then we just got to stay inside and keep the lights turned off so we keep everything cool. Bionic Scoop coming in. What up, Scoop? And Georgie is saying, I'm waiting for the 8th of May UK release date for the Oppo. Nice. Good deal. I mean, like, I am going to either buy one late or maybe try to borrow one or something. But it's too much. It's too much when I've got like 10 things on my desk that I still need to do. So this last week, I got further on a whole bunch of videos, on a headphone, on a rugged tablet, on a crazy experimental laptop. I mean, things that I really enjoy talking about. But I am really in that burnout spot. It has been so difficult just to get to the end of a video and publish it. It's demoralizing. I mean, I really went longer on the Snap selfie than I should have. This is in our housekeeping today. It's this cute little magnetic snap-on monitor. I hate taking photos with selfie cameras. I think it's stupid how many people only sort of appreciate the front-facing camera on a phone. That that's the camera they use the most, and it's the worst camera on your phone. And that's the camera you're going to take pictures of yourself and take pictures of your family and capture all the memories is literally from the webcam. Like, it's acceptable for video calls. That's the level they're at. Someone can come in, oh, but this one, it has a great selfie, and then you can use the screen, it has a light, and blah, blah, blah. And like, and that is still the most inferior camera on your phone. And if you could just turn your phone around and take a photo, you would get a photograph from a newer phone with a better rear camera than from this webcam still that you have from the front camera. So Insta360 made this little monitor. This is in our housekeeping. I probably made this video too long. What this should have been was a 2-minute short where I just unbox it and go, isn't it so cool? It's got a ring flash. Isn't that neat? But I did the review where I actually talked about like the pros and cons and maybe some of the concerns that you might have using it and things that I would hope to see in like an Insta360 Snap version 2, and that video tanked. So I've got to really stop making videos and just give in and do YouTube commercial shorts. That's really all YouTube seems to care about. If it's tech, unless you already had the momentum of having like 10 million subscribers, and even their viewership is dropping right now on those massive YouTube channels, everybody's watch time and viewership is just plummeted compared to where we were a couple years ago. I guess what I need to do is just like, I took it out of the box. Isn't this neat? You should buy one. And then I can tell YouTube to slap on an affiliate link or something like that. But yeah, if you want to see an actual video review of the Insta360 Snap, that is available publicly and on the Patreon. The Patreon, of course, gets the 4K version of that review. And it's a really cool little product. Anything that helps you not use the crappiest camera on your phone is going to be a major upgrade. Now, I can also be a little snarky and say, if you live in a phone for a while, you could also just develop a good habit of shooting blind. Almost every single phone that I take photos of myself and my family and doing cool things, I'm almost always just shooting blind. You just turn the phone around and you kind of line up your face on the glass and you push the volume rocker, and you too can take a much better photo of yourself without having to invest in other accessories. If you absolutely need the screen to line up your shot, now there are some better options where you can put a screen on the back of your phone, and that's cool too. But I was just shown time and time again. I did the suitcase computer. I did the Insta360. Things that I think are just kind of fun to talk about. And YouTube just wallops you. Like no traffic at all. And so the other bit of housekeeping, I did a camera tour on the Vivo X300 Ultra. Like I said, I am desperately trying not to fall into the trap of using the X300 Ultra and not reviewing it. This has been a consistent issue that I've had with Xiaomi and Vivo, where I get so into the cameras on those phones. They are regularly the cameras I'm using for my videos, for my reviews, for my editorials, for family events. And then I really haven't done my job in collecting good, consistent samples and reviewing the performance. So I am trying to get ahead of the Vivo this go around, especially because, again, I am just kind of surprised. It's like Ben put out a couple videos and then everyone went, okay, well, that's all we had to say about that. And I think there is a critical argument to be made this year, as different than the X200 Ultra. I think there is a critical argument to be made for the X300 maybe being one of, if not the best camera phones of the year. It's wild. But again, that's now the job we all have to dig into. Apparently, YouTube doesn't care to put my video in front of other people's faces unless it is 90 seconds long with no criticisms, just fun, excitement, and cool camera cuts. And it has to be produced. It can't just be me talking to a selfie camera. No, those videos don't do much traffic. It has to be like a punchy 2-minute produced, fun music, lots of quick cuts, lots of action, like I'm making a video for kittens, and then YouTube will say, okay, well, maybe we could put that one out there. I'm not bitter. I'm super bitter. From Ankh, I don't know if you missed this part. Hey, when is your video on the Oppo X9 Ultra camera app review coming? One, it's not a review, it's a tour. I'm not actually delivering a judgment. This is another problem that we have in YouTube land. I'm not picking on you, Ankh. This is like literally every single pitch I have in my inbox right now. All of the sponsored videos I'm not gonna do, where I could really use that money and kind of use that money to help buy more phones. Every single one of them is coming out with this like, well, we can't pay your rate, but what if we paid like a tenth of your rate and you called this an in-depth review, but you followed our brief and our guidelines and you said this about our competitors' products being inferior, and you just sacrificed all of your credibility to make us a commercial for like $100. And you're seeing video after video after video going up on YouTube where they're calling these things reviews. That is not a review. It is an overview, it is an advertisement, it's a commercial, it's sponsored content, it's content. But just, oh, my earnestly held beliefs are this product is so much better than this other product because this company paid me. Like, yeah, your earnestly held beliefs are you like to make money. But it's going to be a while before I get my hands on an Oppo. I've got to finish the X300 Ultra, and I'm so tired of stacking 4 or 5 devices in a row and then not really finishing all the stuff that I want to do on them. So it's going to be a bit. But I mean, just, you know, and fun things too. Like, I want to check out, I've got the X300 Ultra here. I finally got myself, I spilled something on it. There's like red goo on the volume rocker, and that's no good. I'll have to clean that up before I put my Ultra on camera again. Oh, I know what this was. I had a spicy chicken sandwich yesterday. Okay, so I helped a friend do a video, and I'm actually going to talk about this too when we talk about phones and stuff. And he took me out to lunch just to say thanks for helping him with the video. And I got this spicy chicken sandwich that had just a ridiculous amount of this like Tabasco-y sauce on it, and it just like it ended up all over my half of the table. I looked like a complete ghoul trying to eat this thing. I got 2 bites in, gave up, cut it up with a knife and fork. It was so good, but I made an utter mess of it, and now my X300 Ultra is spicier. This is really not great. Uh, so I don't know where I was going with that. We've got other stuff that we need to chat about. So yeah, I got 2 legit videos out publicly. I've got some other stuff on the Patreon, and I'm just blocked. I have so many other things that are in the pipeline, and I'm just really struggling to finish them. Like, I am burnt out. I am exhausted. So I really want to play with the Oppo, but there are things about the... See, here's the other part of it too. Here's my bias. When we're talking about a $900 OnePlus, I loved what the OnePlus 12 brought to the table. In terms of camera, in terms of app, the hardware was really good, the performance was stellar, and it was this significant undercut against like a Galaxy or an iPhone or a Pixel. We get to current Oppo, and when I'm looking at the Ultra, it does so many things, and it's such a powerful platform. And I absolutely believe a ton of people are going to list it as their favorite phone camera of the year. And I think it deserves recognition. But the Oppo camera app still seems to leave out some of those more professional elements that make me really excited about a phone that's going to cost over $1,000. And when you fully kit it out, this like could be a $2,000 purchase. Vivo, I think, has done a really good job of addressing some of my previous complaints and building on camera performance in a way that I haven't really seen since Sony. So if I do an Oppo camera app tour, my personal bias is probably going to come in just a little more critical. I really like what Oppo and Hasselblad bring to the table, but I really liked that on a $900 phone. I felt like the streamlining, the auto modes, the processing, the kind of heavy-handed, I felt like Oppo and OnePlus were really gunning for pixel. I kind of feel like Vivo and Xiaomi are really gunning for Sony. And that's a different philosophy when I'm looking at like total package price could be $2,000. The Vivo X300 Ultra, when you put the whole kit together, could be a $2,000 phone purchase. So I want it to do things that like my $1,000 camera body with a $1,000 lens, I would normally turn to this. And I'm not sure that's the exact same philosophy I'm going to get from an Oppo. So again, there's a lot there. I'm not trying to pick on anyone. I'm not trying to I'm especially and Ankh, thank you for the comment there, but I can't help but like literally it's the me channel in my videos, like that's how I feel about some of these things as we're trying to get through what we're chatting about. Bradley Larcher, it's a Vivo Spicy Ultra. Man, I'm such a slob. I just like, and I went full face on this sandwich, and it was so good. I just can't help myself. Like when necessary, I can dredge up some table manners, but man, I was hungry and that thing was tasty, and it was a mess. From Georgie, Juan, you need an assistant. One-man band would never be able to cover much product. The dream was eventually building up the Patreon to the point where we could bring in a PA. And the Patreon is definitely covering more of the costs and is funding way more than YouTube is. And I greatly appreciate all the people that are supporting and contributing. But the Patreon is kind of mostly going just to keep lights on. And we're saving up a little bit of a gadget budget so that we can get product when we need it. Like I'm still waiting to see what might happen with a Steam VR headset. I really want to cover the frame, and I think the frame is going to be critically important for Android users and for gamers and for PC and for computing on ARM. And that's going to be a good chunk of the budget that we save up from the Patreon. Unfortunately, we never hit that tier. We never hit that threshold where I could bring on like a part-timer just to kind of help manage some of this other stuff. Like what I would love to do is do clips. Like I had some real spicy moments last week on the podcast. It'd be cool. I would love to have clipped those out because I said some really inflammatory things. That's the kind of stuff I think YouTube would really like. I don't have the time for it. That's just got to kind of go off on its own, right? So it's tough operating this as a business knowing that the deck is completely stacked against you. And how do you motivate yourself when you know I'm going to put some energy into this. I really want it to be good and I have something to say about this and YouTube doesn't care. I actually think people interested in this product would care, but YouTube doesn't care. Or YouTube seems to go out of their way to find like, oh, well, here's like 100 people that are subscribed to him that subscribed because they followed like his old audio reviews from when he was back at Pocket Now. I know what we'll do. We'll give them first crack at this selfie camera thing. Oh, they didn't like it. I guess his video isn't popular enough. And you're like, that's stupid. I know there's a whole audience of people who are looking at things to make their vlogs better. What's the best upgrade you can do when vlogging is not using the crappiest camera on your phone. That's a no-brainer. But I know for a fact that my video's not even making it that far out of my own subscriber base to ever find. There's no discoverability anymore. I'm not bringing new people in, and the stats on YouTube seem to verify that, which is pretty stupid. Oh, moving right along. Footloose and Fancy Free. those were the two biggies. I've had a few other things out on the Patreon. Like for example, we went early access for the IQ coverage, and those videos performed okay. They didn't perform great. Then I've been kind of back into trying to share a few more photos just from some of these phones. For example, some of my early shots on the X300 Ultra. One, just that really killer shot of Lex in action that I took with the 400 millimeter extender. That's over on the Flickr, and now it's not coming up. You're just looking at a gray screen here if you're watching the video. I'm just gonna stick on this page right here. Then one of the things that I really like about the Vivo over the Xiaomi is of course the telephoto macro. And so the macro performance is pretty stellar, and I got like this little close-up shot of a snail, and it's just such a great photo, and the plane of focus is so razor thin. Like I've got the face of the snail in focus, and it's, I don't know, 2 centimeters in length, and then the shell is already starting to fall out of focus, and you can see in the wood grain under the snail like what the diagonal plane is, and it's so lean. It's just so much fun. I mean, I have the confession is you know, I did my coverage on the Xiaomi 17 Ultra. I thought it was a really good phone, but when I'm looking at demonstrating with the Xiaomi, I'm kind of back to the Xiaomi 15. That this is the phone that I actually like to carry better, even though I know in most shooting scenarios, the medium telephoto camera is inferior to the the actual optical zoom range on the 17 Ultra. But then when I need to, I can get so close and get a much better macro photo. It's that macro shot. I'm such a nerd for macros. I actually went back a whole generation on Xiaomi just for that one feature. It's those kinds of things, like the philosophy of why and the explanation of like, well, this is the performance and this is why this matters, and you might have a preference. There's still a reason someone might like a Vivo X100 over an X300. There are differences there that have that contribute to what you try to accomplish with a phone. And it makes me sad because I feel like we were starting to kind of discuss that a little more directly, and then that all kind of unraveled, and now it you know, it's every camera's basically good or enough, right? And that kind of defeatism has really sucked a lot of the joy out of trying to chat about these kinds of products. Um, Michael C2, man. Yeah, a lot of chatting there about YouTube prioritizing and algorithms and stuff like that. It's pretty wild. Um, and Georgie, it is so easy to get close-ups with the Vivo. I mean, you start with a pretty good telephoto focusing range, and then you can crop in a pretty good amount on that sensor, and I feel like Oppo's the closest competitor there. It's I used to have macro lenses and extension tubes, and I can definitely get better close-up photos from my Lumix, right? From my Panasonic, my G9 here. It is so easy to get a good phone close-up that looks like it came from another camera. And it's so good. I like the gap, and this is what's killing me is like I'm still looking at, you know, I think Petapixel recently just covered, you know, a couple phones, and they're like, oh yeah, is this a phone or is this a camera? And you're like, cool, good job guys. The way to be sort of dismissive that we've been seeing this progress for years now, but Apple hadn't done it, so you guys didn't praise it. um I feel like it's the photographers that have really missed out on a good, fun, challenging piece of hardware to use. It forces you to rethink your creativity. It forces you to work under different constraints, and it's a camera system that you can rely on that you don't have to worry about keeping a larger piece of kit with you. So I'm at these ball games, and I'm my daughter's team didn't make it into the final championship round, but one of her best friends is on a team that did. So of course we went up to the ballpark over the weekend, and we caught their last games, and it were just like incredible nail biter, like massive defensive opportunities, just like really good softball. Just in general, not hey, this was pretty good play for 10-year-olds. Just like these games get exciting. And so I'm at the back of the stands because I'm not a parent on this team, and I'm just picking off shots with that 400 millimeter telephoto adapter on the Vivo. And I had 3 different moms come up to me like, "What are you shooting on?" And the first time that I'd done that for their team, I sent the photos to the team's coach because I'm friends with their coach. And he shared them with all of the parents. Like, these are awesome shots. You got some great shots of my daughter, but you actually got shots of the whole team. Do you mind if I share these? And I went, yeah, go for it. And so now I've got a reputation. Parents are coming up to me and like, so what is it that you're using? Is that like a case on your phone? Is that an Android? Is that an iPhone? And so I can like take this off and like, oh, here's the Vivo and it's big circle, and oh, I can attach this lens. But what is a Vivo? Is a Vivo like an accessory, or is that like, and like one mom, again, it's so cute to me when they don't have the language to describe what they mean. It's like the mom that I met when I was showing people cinema glasses. And she kept asking, is it 2D? Is it 2D? And she meant, is it like a movie theater screen, or is this like VR with depth? But she couldn't conceptualize that, and she couldn't put language to it. And so the same is like, so is this your phone? And you're like, well, yeah, I mean, it's my phone. I take calls on it and do all this. No, but like, but it's not a camera. Like, I don't know what you're trying to get at. It is a phone and it's got cameras on it. It's like any other phone, but the cameras are really good. And I had one mom like actively looking up Vivo in the stands and going, "Oh, they don't sell them here." And you're like, that's what I was trying to explain is this is a company that sells in Asia and in Europe. They sell internationally, but they don't bring their phones here. And unfortunately, phones in the United States are falling a couple years behind. So at least from there, I could point to a few of them and say, I don't believe the cameras are as good, but if you've got a Google, or if you have a Samsung, or if you have an iPhone, you can check out these other accessory manufacturers, and you can get lenses and things for those phones too. But the reason I'm able to pull off some of the shots that I am through chain link fence, the cameras matter. The cameras that are built into the phone help a great deal in arriving at the final output that I'm sharing with, you know, your parents on this team. And it's just interesting, like, it's been a while. Oh, and I had one assistant coach came up and said like, yeah, I stopped bringing all of my camera gear to the games because it's too big, it's too bulky. And I hold up the Vivo and I'm like, this is a 400 millimeter lens. When was the last time you could put a 400 millimeter lens in your pocket? And yes, I am happy to see you, but it's also a 400 millimeter lens. It's like the dad joke writes itself, guys. Come on, this is really fun. It was great because like there was someone on the other team that had, for it's the championship game, so parents are taking this really seriously. Someone had, I think it was a Nikon with like really big glass on it, and I doubt that his photos were so much better than mine. And that looked like it was miserable to work around in the stands on a monopod. Couldn't go anywhere. You can't really set it down. Got to be really careful with it. It's big, expensive glass. And here I am just like, okay, well, I'm done with the 400. Let me just pop this off and throw it in my cargo shorts. And that is so accessible. And that my full setup was probably less than the cost of his glass. And we're still watching photographers go, oh, I don't know, phone cameras, they're never worth it. And I always have my camera with me because I'm an important photographer. If you're a real photographer, you just never set your camera down for reals, these guys. And that person sucks. Um, that's a good question, Michael C2. How have the older Oppo Ultra phones aged? The X7 Ultra is like below 600 on Swappa. The last one I really, actually, it wasn't an Ultra. I take that back. I was gonna dig in. The last Oppo I spent time with was the X8 Pro. And the X8 Pro was like the One Plus we never got here in the United States. So it had the fourth camera sensor in addition to the triple camera that was on the OnePlus 13. And I feel like that phone has aged beautifully. I would imagine I don't know, people get really particular about like operating system updates, and I still get comments all the time like, "Well, Vivos are such great camera hardware, but the ROMs always let me down. The Vivo skin is just so incomplete." And I guess I can't handle people like it. There's this one thing that I absolutely need on my Samsung, and it's, I just can't use a Vivo. I just couldn't possibly do without my One UI. Cool. I guess that's fine for you. But what I would really look at is what you're trying to accomplish. If you're trying to get, uh, like, if you're looking at the camera hardware and you're saying like, hey, I really want to try this, or I really want to get these images out of my phone, I'm looking at opportunities for me, it always comes down to, is this a phone that's going to give me great shots in good light, but then struggle elsewhere? I love taking candids, and I love taking candids from a distance. I love taking macros, and I love using a telephoto to get right up on top of something. I like taking video, but I like playing with the video, so I can do things like 4K 120 and immediately drop from like real time 30 frames per second to a 1/4 speed and then wrap it back up at the end. I like doing speed ramps for my family videos. And if you're trying to find those things, then what I would look at are what were the actual capabilities of every one of those ultras. And maybe you might want to step up to a Find X8 Ultra instead of the X7, right? The camera sensors help enable different things to do. The Vivo X100 is, I think, a perfect example. The X100 Pro has a better main camera sensor for that look, that feel, that depth, the quality of the image. The X200 Ultra technically lets in more light at the sensor level. You're not suffering action or low light photography, but there's a quality to the X100's main camera sensor that I liked so much better. Especially, we took it on our vacation to London, and I'm going around and I'm shooting all these incredible scenes, and yeah, there's a good separation of subject and background and the bokeh and the depth of field blur, but you can still see it. We're at the London Eye, right? And I have this incredible like head and shoulder portrait, even from a wider lens, and the focus fall off is gorgeous, and I like that feel better than I liked it on the X200 Pro. So that's what I would look for. Not just it's older Ultra, has it aged well? There are still so many good arguments to go back 2 or maybe 3 generations of phone and say, what are the capabilities I want? I still feel like in Xiaomi land is the perfect example. Go back to a 14 Ultra and you'll sacrifice performance on the telephoto cameras, but you'll get the variable aperture on a 1-inch type sensor. That's huge. That is an incredible camera phone to shoot on today. Goes toe to toe with a lot of these other newer options. So you're in a really good range right now. The last 2 or 3 generations of phone can do you really well, and especially if you can find deals like that. Simon says, Hypno, wow, I had my X Elite laptop for a whole 2 months, not installed much on it. An update says Windows needs to be repaired. I think I'm officially done with Windows. That's terrible, dude. I don't know what manufacturer you had, but like that really sucks. That's another one like I would maybe ask the manufacturer WTF, what's going on here? Cuz I got to say like my Surface has been rock solid and I've been getting the Surface firmware and hardware updates. Now we've been getting the Qualcomm GPU updates, and like this thing is running so well. Like I almost kind of don't want to mess around and like jump to an X2 from another manufacturer because it doesn't look like Microsoft is jumping on the X2 anytime soon. My X1 is running so well. I don't want to mess with it. But no, I feel you. Windows has definitely been bugging, and increasingly, I've been kind of getting more people at least interested in the idea of considering the possibility of hopefully someday managing a switch to Linux, which is pretty great. Oh, and we got to say hey to Andrew, Fat Produce. Thank you so much for the super chat, man. I really appreciate that. He says, greetings. I hope this wonderful community is having a logical Monday. It's a wonderful day to join in with the best community on YouTube. And I really appreciate the support, man. Thanks for dropping by, and that, that helps buy a coffee, sort of. And not that your contribution isn't enough. It's just that coffees have gotten ridiculously expensive. And I appreciate people that are supporting and sharing and joining these conversations. So I'm always happy to see your face, man. And thank you for jumping in like that. Tangential Tesseract is saying I'm still debating between the X9 and N6 to replace my broken OnePlus Open, but I've totally gotten those "what's that phone" questions just thanks to the circle on the back. Man, it felt good. Not like, oh, I'm totally bragging and showing off, but like I knew I was pulling off good shots. You know that feeling like you land a shot. Like I got this great one of their catcher. She's like arm cocked, ready to throw down to second, and it's just from this perfect like caught the ball, popped up. She's ready to launch, and it freezes that moment through chain link fence, and it just looks so good. Makes her look like a titan, right? She's ready to do battle. This catcher's just in armor, ready to throw a lightning bolt to second base. And like I land it. And in that instant, I know that's a good shot. That feeling is so addictive. It's so rich. It is delicious and I love it. And then I know, like, secondarily, I'm gonna share that with their coach, and he's gonna share that with that kid's mom. And that mom is like, hey, we got this awesome photo of you. Isn't this so cool? And it's like, it's just a moment. It's a moment that I got joy literally out of the technical experience of capturing that moment. And then I got a little extra tangential joy by passing it along. And that's, I don't know, that to me is again, for the styles of photography that I enjoy the most. I'm not a minimalist. I'm not landscape. I'm not portraiture. I suck at portraiture, but like candids, action, a moment. Can you nail a moment? Oh, it feels so good. I love it. I love it so much. So then, when people ask you about that, or they say, like, hey, I used to bring my camera out all the time and now I just have kind of given up, that kind of breaks your heart a little bit. You have this mirrorless and you've got good glass, and it's becoming such a hassle to set it up and use it, and that's what I feel we lose. All of these photographers that act like, oh, if you don't have this surgically attached to your hand, then you're a filthy casual, they're becoming the audiophiles of the photography movement. They're becoming the unsufferables. Whereas, like, I'm trying to get people back into cool headphones and stuff. Like, audiophiles actually kind of having a moment right now. I kind of feel like photographers are shooting themselves in their own feet. You have this beautiful opportunity with a bunch of influencers using old point and shoot cameras again because the photos look different than phone photos. And instead, like, you kind of poop all over that and then act like there's only this one flavor of camera review commentary, comment snobbing is the way to be a photographer. And instead, you could have embraced like incredible phone tech and brought people up. Instead, you're kind of shutting them down. And people are going to say, like, I think I'm getting great photos out of my phone. These guys suck. And you're never really going to impart the message or the educational opportunity to have them build. You didn't explain the why. Why do the images from this phone look different than the images from this phone, even when they're at a similar field of view? Well, I mean, phone cameras, it's not really worth even talking about. You should just move to a mirrorless. If you're really serious about it, well, you just lost them. You just shut it down. You didn't give them the yes and, like we teach you in improv. You gave them the no but. Sorry, I'm way behind on this chat. You guys gave me some really good tangents here. H2O Taku. This is what I'm saying, man. It nailed it right here. That's true. Who wants a significant improvement on their $1,400 phone when you could buy a $3,000 standalone camera? That is exactly what average people want to do. These CEOs are geniuses. But what about the average consumers? So, I mean, I'll go, like, what you could buy my setup here for now. What is that? That was like a $300 lens. That was a 500, so that's 800. That was an $800 lens, so that's 1600. Then I've got another 900 zoom. So yeah, for mirrorless body, and I have two G9s. I got one real cheap from someone who kind of left making content. I have two G9s, and I've got like 5 lenses that are actually really nice lenses. That's about 4,500. Like when we're really buying and shopping, not just MSRP. I mean, I bought all of these lenses at good new price discounts. And I would say I'm in for about 4,500 on the camera gear that I've got. And when I go outside, I don't take any of it anymore because a $1,400 phone can cover me almost as well. And against the G9, I can also do a few other fun things, like I can plug an SSD into my phone and use Blackmagic camera and record directly to the SSD. I have an easier time going directly to a USB plug for an audio kit rather than using the insert on the G9, which has a terrible analog to digital converter there. It's like little things like that. The phone is actually the better tool than the cameras that I've spent all this money on. If I scrap all of my camera gear and go with the brand newest of new camera bodies, I could definitely clean up some of those pain points, but not all of them. And the phone would still be a more accessible, easier to pack, easier to power, and first immediate step in editing that my cameras all can't do. So again, I feel like we keep missing the best of this by just averaging out all of the worst of it. And then, of course, camera reviewers are just like any other tech outlet. Like, well, I mean, obviously, iPhones have the best video. That's such crap. John Galwan is definitely not showing off. Well, and also, like, Flickr was not helping me show off either. I had some really good photos up on there. I just couldn't get them to zoom in. From Jameser79, does the OnePlus 12 have a good camera? I'm upgrading from a OnePlus 7T. I would argue that the OnePlus 12 is still the high watermark for camera. That is still, it's the OnePlus 12 and the OnePlus Open have the best cameras that OnePlus has ever put on a phone. I'll draw that line in the sand. The OnePlus 13 loses close focus on the telephoto sensor. It's very close. The OnePlus 12, OnePlus 13, very close. But I think the OnePlus 12 has an edge. And then obviously the OnePlus 15 is a marked step down in camera sensor tech. They had to save cash. It's still competitive against like a Galaxy S26, but it doesn't beat the Galaxy S like the OnePlus 12 did. The OnePlus 12 is a little gem. Still reasonably powerful, still very good battery life, not the biggest battery, not the fastest charging, and if it's older and if it was used, then yeah, you're gonna have to deal with sort of the age of all those components. But if we're talking cameras, that is OnePlus's peak. OnePlus 9 was this huge surge in camera performance and camera technology. The OnePlus 12, I think, is the top, and then little decrescendo after the OnePlus 12. Oh, from Kenox, I'm pretty impressed how stabilized that shot was with the lens attachment. So I am working my hardest. It is so hard hand holding a 400mm shot. I am working, I think the shutter speed on that was 2000. So like I went above and beyond a faster shutter than you really need. You know, you do the little like calculation in your head. Okay, if I'm shooting 400, maybe I can get away with a 1/1000th of a second shutter speed, and I doubled it. And even then, it is so hard to frame because like the slightest little shrug or shift and it throws it off. And there's also kind of an issue with the grip on the Vivo, where I would try to use the shutter on the grip, but that would be different than the focus system if you tap the screen. So you tap the screen, then go to take the photo. That's a different focus action. So I lost a bunch of shots because I was working cross. I was working against one system with the other. That's still one of the things that doesn't quite feel like a camera. Like if I tap on the screen on my Lumix and then I go to push the shutter, I'm priming a different kind of focus action, but it all works together. On the Vivo, I have an expectation it's going to do something like a camera, and it doesn't do it like a camera. It works more like a phone one way and more like a camera the other. And you got to wrap your brain, you got to get familiar with the weirdness in every camera system. So it's real nice. Bionic Scoop. Now wait a damn minute. I know everything that I just talked about, Scoop, I'm sure you could have applied that comment to multiple things that I just said. So I don't know that I can go back and really narrow down exactly what one comment I made that was worthy of wait a damn minute. Michael C2 replying. Juan really liked it if memory serves, and the tech preacher owns 200 phones, and he still daily drives the OnePlus 12. I thought he was. Oh, is he actually legit in that OnePlus? I haven't. Yeah, I apologize. Wednesdays were a really rough night for us, so I haven't been kind of tuning into those live streams. I mostly just lurk on Tuesdays. So I didn't know if he was still there, if he was always like, well, I need my Samsung Ultra or my Samsung Folds. I know he has like a stack of iPads that he doesn't do anything with. So, oh, Georgie, exactly. So Georgie says, Juan, I'm the same amongst my coworkers. AD department is calling me to make the food product photos with my phone. And you're like, yeah, it's gotten that good, that immediate. Yes, I definitely can get a better produced, manicured, controlled macro or close-up photo with my mirrorless camera if I want to take the best possible food photo I can. I can get so close with my phone, and I can get there so much faster that you trade that off and go, okay, this is absolutely abbreviating my workflow, and that is money in my pocket based on time. Bionic Scoop, resident photographer, is slightly offended. I know, man. It is what it is. Bionic Scoop is saying, welcome to my world, Juan. And again, and even in the camera circles, I'm sure, Scoop, you've run into like, well, why are you shooting on that system? Why don't you use a Canon, Nikon, Sony? Because those are the best systems. I love it. Like, the thing I definitely feel simpatico to. I've talked to a bunch of Fuji shooters who all have like chips on their shoulder. It's like, no, I chose my system and I like my system. This is the right fit for me. And I always bump into like a Nikon shooter. It's like, well, but why not a Nikkor glass and this and that? I don't know. That Fuji, I guess it's fine if that's what you like. I love the bitterness. Because it's also like, yeah, I'm absolutely talking to an idiot right now. Oh, Eugene Debs, John Gao talking about subscribing on the Twitch. I have not been doing a very good job of promoting the Twitch. Twitch changed up how they archive older episodes, and it really messed up my website for a hot minute. I had to go through and replace a whole bunch of broken video clips and stuff. And so I really do need to get back into, it's like I've got to put out one fire at a time. But I've really got to get back into making sure that the podcast feels properly diversified. I don't like having the main video feed that we point to being on YouTube. I don't think YouTube is a good curator. I don't think they've got the best interests of the podcast community. I recently just went and delisted or unlisted almost the entire run of the podcast on YouTube. And a lot of people were concerned that I was like getting rid of old episodes. All of the episodes of my podcast are still on YouTube. All of them are still accessible and visible if you go to my YouTube channel and you go to the podcast tab and there's a playlist. All of them are still there. But I use a burner account just to try and get a handle on what trends pop up from a channel like mine. And I would do things like I'd go and watch one of my older, not old videos, but like a more recent video, just see what it does, how it's performing. And I would keep getting these situations where I'd fire up like an 8-minute review, and then one of the top recommendations would be like a 3-year-old episode of my podcast. My podcast is very topical news. So that's not okay. Hey, viewer, you just watched this edited, concise, pros and cons product video, a review of a more recent product, and now if you want to keep watching content from this producer instead of other reviews like the one you just watched, let me recommend to you a topical tech politics podcast from years ago where you can watch him ramble for almost 3 hours about the FCC. YouTube is actively, like, they're trying to push people into, well, we need more watch time, but instead of really matching the video you just watched to another video you might be interested in, they're just immediately jumping to something completely irrelevant, but it's long watch time. He must want that. They're acting like I'm an influencer, like you care about my personality. And I know for a fact that's not what you care about. Obviously, you care about my opinion on gadgets, but that's not, you don't care if I go to Disneyland and just talk about, hey guys, I'm here at Disneyland. Isn't this so much fun? I love being at fun places. Don't you want to give me lots of money so I can travel to fun places that you'll never get to go to? You guys don't give a poop about me doing that. But you do want to see what I have to say about gadgets. That is the wrong fit. So I unlisted almost the entire run of this podcast because YouTube is just not playing fair. They're not helping. They're not helping people discover relevant videos that apply to their interests. They're literally just trying to maximize watch time, and I have a whole catalog of multiple hour-long podcasts, so they're trying to push people to that when that is not what they would be interested in watching on my channel. And I tried doing the whole let's set up a second channel to do podcasts on, and that completely crashed and burned. And I even worked with TK Bay on that. You would think TK Bay with 200,000 subscribers and me with 180,000 subscribers would bring people to a second channel, and YouTube went, nah, not interested, not good enough, and just hosed us on a proper podcast channel. So I don't know, it's just, it's tough. I feel like you've got to trade the corporate masters. Amazon isn't going to be any better suitor for my podcast, but it's like I've got to spread this out. There's still an auto post to Facebook. I haven't checked my Facebook in forever, but like if you need to find the podcast on Facebook, it's on Facebook. If you need to find the podcast on LinkedIn, it's on LinkedIn. It's irrelevant. But I need to do a better job of kind of spreading it around and not letting it just be, this is a YouTube live stream and that's the only thing that matters. So again, Eugene and John, thank you. I really appreciate folks sharing and contributing. And again, catching it where you want to catch it means a lot too. And hopefully I'm keeping the chat decently enough and well integrated enough that even if you don't see exactly all the chat on Twitch, that at least you can see some of what the conversation is over here. In fact, let me try one thing. I don't know what this is going to look like. Oh, it's not going to let me do it. Hold on. I can do rounded. I think that looks a little better, but that's like really small. I don't know. I'm going to leave it like that for just a minute, but that only means like 1 or 2 comments are going to be up at a time. But it might be easier to read. Let's try that. From Hassam, I have not. Hey Juan, have you had your hands on the Unihertz Elite? I really wanted to jump on that one too, but I knew it was going to be another one of those. It would be a personal passion project. I'd get to play around with it for a little bit, and then what would I do with it? So I'm going to try and reach out. I've done enough work with the 8849 team. That's sort of the offshoot of Unihertz. They make all the crazy rugged stuff. And I'm going to ask, like, is there any way we can chat? The very first time, and this was a long time ago, the very first time I reached out, it was for one of the Unihertz mini little phones. And I got someone in their PR who immediately did that influencer thing that I hate, where it was, well, we've looked at your channel and we really want a long-term relationship, so you should make a video for us for free, and we'll tell you what to say in the video, and we'll tell you how to say our product is better than other competitors' products. And it just, like, to me, that is an immediate eject. When you come in with that, you must be a tiny little channel so we can just bully you. I'm not interested at all. But I've had great experiences with the 8849 team, so I'm hoping that means maybe some of this has changed up a bit. I should do a little outreach and just say, like, you know, I cover these kinds of devices. I still occasionally bring up Blackberries. What can we do? Maybe we can work together. But when it immediately dovetails into, well, you need to publish the video on this date, and you need to say this stuff from our brief, and you need to compare it against our competitors where we win, and we're not even going to pay you for a sponsored video to make us a commercial, and we really want a long-term relationship, so here's an affiliate link, so if you hawk the phone a whole bunch on your social media, maybe you'll make 50 bucks on this. And I'm out. I'm way behind. I'm gonna just try and catch up on this chat here, because there is a few other things that I want to talk about. Oh yeah, Bionic Scoop. I do product shots at work with my phone for our website, and my entire Fuji life. See, I knew it. I knew. There's something about the Fuji shooter that I feel a kinship to. It's like you feel my pain. You feel the eye rolls. Bionic Scoop, I literally was published internationally with work on OM systems in Fuji. Client didn't care. The shots were good. Right? Okay. Anyway, sorry. Vonnegut Rosewater, if you think about it, podcast is one of the last places in the world where you could count on RSS feed style and no algorithm and YouTube, Spotify, Amazon ruining it. The audio versions of your podcast are still available for me on AntennaPod, at least last I checked. And see, I won't ever be on this. Vonnegut Rosewater also. Netflix has been buying up the video versions of a bunch of podcasts and streams like Behind the Bastards, Bill Simmons, Pardon My Take. People are pretty pissed, like fans that don't have Netflix. I'm never gonna be... We got really close a long time ago. We pitched a show to Netflix, movies you may have missed, trying to do sort of two schlubby guys joke around, talk about movies, have guests on, and they could be ways that we could promote movies coming to Netflix. And this was at the very, very beginning of the streaming service. And it was like a fun way that the videos can be topical. When you lose the license to that movie, you can just kill the episode, but we can churn episodes like crazy, and then you always have this like additional fodder. You go to the movie and oh, here's an additional podcasty commentary about it. And we got decently into conversations with very low-level assistants to executives at Netflix, and then it just completely fell apart. But it's I don't know. My rambling 2-hour, 3-hour weekly diatribe is not something I think anyone's too keen on picking up. Again, if I could get it to a point where I could get some interest for a good weekly tech conversation on a good podcast network, I would immediately pitch, here are 2 hosts and we're going to work with an editor. I would love to, like Jules, when I was working with Jules at Pocket Now. I loved how he put shows together. We worked really well. I would love to give that dude a job. And I can't get there. I can't pay for it first and then hope it gets picked up somewhere else, because that's not how podcasts are working anymore. But to that point, want to get Rosewater, I still need to highlight, you can do that with YouTube. You do not have to live by the YouTube algorithm. Go look at all the creators that you like to watch, go to their channel page, put that link into an RSS feed reader, and you too can make your own algorithm free, sorted by newest published date, hold on to everything. You don't need to hope that you still have the three dots on your YouTube app so you can add it to a watch now, a watch later list. You can make that. That's what I do. So my YouTube is now irrelevant because I use Feedly, and I will occasionally use the open source app Seal to download an MP3 version of a YouTube video so I can listen to it like a podcast if it's a really long video. Like the Folding Ideas videos, I mostly listen to those. I don't really watch them. So those I'll sort as like audio feeds, because it drives me crazy that I have to pay YouTube to get an audio stream that saves them bandwidth. I have to give you money so that you use less computer. That's stupid. So I'll just download it instead. And I hope people are doing that with like some of my longer videos too. It is stupid to pay for like YouTube Premium to get something that benefits YouTube and makes their job easier. We should be pitchforks and torches, but what are we gonna do? Oh, and Robert brings up an excellent point that the LG V60 is still a terrific phone in this day and age. I haven't made that joke on anyone else's live streams in a while. I should really like go back on one of Tech Preacher's live streams and be like, but Eric, what do you think about the LG V60 today? Robert says, my LG V60 is finally showing it's dying. It's aged so gracefully. Is there a true feature-packed successor? There is not. It really depends on what you do with your V60. If you got a V60 because you liked the dual display case, and that's like the primary thing you like about it, you got to go to a foldable. That's the transition. If you liked the V60 because you wanted good audio, unfortunately, that is no longer going to be built into any of the phones that you can pick up. Maybe a Red Magic. The DAC and amp on a Red Magic is usually pretty good, but it's not LG quad DAC. So instead, you're going to have to go to some other external DAC anyway. It's a good opportunity to catch like where do I have? I have a little box. I'm trying not to knock a whole bunch of stuff off my desk. You could go with like a FIO. I can't remember the other name. There's another really good Bluetooth DAC, and now I can't remember the name of that company. I typically use FIOs. So that'll give you a good amp to really drive your headphones. If you don't want something Bluetooth, you could go, I love this little guy here. This is the UA4. This is the Shanling. And then I really like, this is a little bigger, but I really like the Onyx. So both of these are little, they're not dongle DACs, but they're pretty close to being dongle size. And both of them come with 3.5 and with balanced connectors. So the days of having to carry like a hip flask in your pocket, I still really like, this is my Griffin iFi, I still really like this DAC too. If you wanted audio, you've got a couple options. You can add good audio to another phone. We shouldn't have to do that. We should have phones that have that good audio built in, but you can still do it. And then if you like the camera tech, I think Vivo is probably the closest successor to how LG's camera app functioned. But Vivo, Xiaomi, and Oppo are my top three. I don't recommend Google, Samsung, or iPhone anymore as a camera replacement if you liked what the LG phones could do for cameras. I feel like Google is way too streamlined. I still hate Samsung's processing and shutter decisions, and an iPhone's an iPhone. It's never going to be as fun or as crafty or as even as clumsy. Like the LG camera app had a lot of those little clumsy moments between different settings and modes, and there's something charming about picking up the Vivo and knowing I'm going to get some funk, but around all that funk, I'm getting incredible tools to really dig into and play with. That's kind of again why I veer a little more towards Vivo. I guess stylus support also, but again, it heavily depends on what did you like about your V60. There is no one phone that covers all of those things, and that really sucks. From Suolin. Whoa, a folding ideas shout out. Flippin' love that guy. So I really like his channel. I really like how he puts together his like investigative video diaries. His whole thing on flat earthers is an incredible watch. I'm still bitter. So when he did Line Goes Up, I was at reviews.org and I pitched a NFTs are stupid video. We got to go hard. This is a terrible trend. We cannot let this take root. The whole point of reviews.org, like we have viewers and we have readers that I feel would be hurt by this type of business practice, and we have a reputable outlet to talk about ways to prevent consumer harms. And they kind of went with me on it and then did like, oh, we should just water it down. And so they kind of made me do a video where it was like, oh yeah, well, we just haven't seen what this technology can do yet. Maybe it'll be cool. And is such a missed opportunity. We put out that video and literally like within a week of our video publishing, I don't know if he beat us or if we were, I can't remember if we were ahead or if he was ahead. He comes out with Line Goes Up and you're like, I'm yelling at the reviews.org people and now it's too late. If we were to try and put together a harder hitting video after we just did this watered down wishy-washy video, we'd look like idiots, and he's already sucked all the air out of the room. And every single time I would go to, it was reviews.org or Slick Deals or Newegg and say, we can take a stance on this. They'd all go, oh, we don't want to rock the boat. I don't know. What of our viewers are fans of? We shouldn't do it. And almost like within a week, someone else would have made the video I wanted to make on that. So ever since then, I've been like, well, I'm going to keep watching his channel because he's not beholden to anyone like I've been on all these other platforms. And I really like the way that he frames his commentary. The video he just did on Beast Games is chef's kiss. Mwah. A clear and total indictment on the influencer culture facing young people today. And it's a put it on, just groove with it. It's like the smooth jazz of outrage drama YouTube posting. It's gorgeous. You should definitely check it out. Yeah, Goat V8 talking about the LG V60. You have to list 5 different phones to imitate the power of one. Let that sink in. And there is. I said this in 2021. After we saw that LG was getting out of the phone market, there is no one replacement for a V60. No one else filled that role, filled that spot. And it mostly comes down to LG's terrible marketing, but boy howdy did tech influencers really use LG as a whipping boy. It really sucks. We could have cooler stuff. From Steve Pogue, Motorola has a desktop mode too, no? Motorola still has my favorite desktop mode, but if we're talking about the LG V60, we're talking about bleeding edge camera tech for its time that still hasn't been properly replicated. Like your ability to go into an LG V60, shoot video, set like audio thresholds and proper waveguide levels and gain was huge. Then you also had a premier audiophile grade audio experience. Then you also had the dual display case. You also had stylus support. Some Motorola's have some stylus support. Again, it's like piece by piece by piece, and you had it on a phone with, at the time, the best battery life and a nice big bright screen and top of the line processing power for its generation. And I'm so mad because like a phone will come out and be like, see, it's got a headphone jack. And it's like, yeah, but it's on like a Snapdragon 6. And I want it on an 8 Elite. So you could still get a memory card. Yeah, but that's on a cheap phone with terrible cameras. Why do I need a memory card if I'm not going to use the cameras? The whole point of having the memory card like on a Sony is that I could use that as media and storage because I shoot a whole ton of video on Sonys. That was the point. And it's so frustrating because they keep purposely looking past the holistic phone experience to say, well, but I mean, if you care about that one feature, if you just care about stylus, there's a Moto with a stylus. Yeah, it's a $600 phone that should really be a $300 phone. But it's got stylus support. That's pretty cool. Thanks. That'll totally be the right replacement for my LG V60 that's still more powerful than the Moto you're trying to recommend as a replacement. Awesome. You're real good at the tech, YouTube tech influencer guy. And you just can't. It just wears you out. There's like no point in even like trying to jump into those kinds of tech conversations now. Is people who are so crazy undereducated about the tech they use and confident in their own tech education that's completely incomplete. From Ted, LGV60. Look at what they need to imitate a fraction of our power. That's another thing too. I don't spend a lot of time on Reddit anymore, but like the last couple times I popped in just to kind of scan, so many invincible comments, memes, discussions. Like it's crazy like how there's like a thread at Reddit and that's just what we're talking about this month. It's all invincible. And what about Thrag and oh, Adam Eve, and you're like, I don't watch this show and I know everything I need to know about the show just because it is discussed to death over on Reddit. So I wanted to highlight this here, and I'm not going to go too deep into it because this is something that I did yesterday for a friend, and it's not even going to show up well. I might take like a little snippet of this, maybe share a clip of it over on over on the Patreon, patreon.com/somegadgetguy. So to do some of the softball stuff as we're getting into tournament season and championships and all-stars, our league is asking coaches and managers to shoot a video. So they put out this questionnaire and they have this list and they ask what teams and what experience you have. We all had to go, as coaches, we all had to go through, youth sports training for, sort of detecting signs of abuse and, making sure we had good policy and, inappropriate relationships with players. Like all of that stuff is covered. You have to go through trainings. You have to go through modules. I've spent a lot of time now going through all of that. But this was something new. And my friend, he's wanting to coach a team. And this was kind of a big deal for him. He isn't the kind of guy that puts himself on video a whole bunch. And a lot of the coaches were like, yeah, you just gonna like fire up your selfie camera, take a video. And that's not what he wanted. He didn't want it to look like, oh, you're making me do this video, so I'm just doing this video. He still wanted to show when I do something, I care about what I do. And so we were just kind of spitballing, and I made a joke like, hey man, at any point, I'll clip a mic to you, we can come up to the field, I'll lock down a tripod, we'll make it look pretty good. You just need to talk for a minute. I could totally set that up. And he's like, oh, yeah, that's funny. And then like his wife reminded him what I do for a living, and he was like, well, do you think we could do that? And so it was just a great opportunity. I ran him up to the ballpark that we play at, and this is cropped funny because it's in a browser. I'm not gonna play this video just because I feel like he would be a little embarrassed. But that was the view that we got. He's standing on the first baseline. You can see all of the Malibu mountains behind him. This beautiful, like kind of cloudy day. We shot it just as we were getting a little bit of soft cloud cover, so he wasn't squinting super hard into the sunlight. Clipped on my little Boya mic, and it looks so freaking good. That Vivo. So here's the other thing that I love. Like, you can kind of do this on a Xiaomi, and I'm pretty sure there are some deeper buried settings on an Oppo. But when you go into the Video Pro app on the Vivo X300 Ultra, and you toggle, you have to go into the settings, and I think into the Pro app setting, but you go into the settings and you say, disable the video noise reduction. So I want to say this was shot, this wasn't, I want to say this was like ISO 400, somewhere in there. I mean, not crazy bright, but there's a grain to this video. There's a texture to this. He's wearing a gray and black, you know, kind of baseball style shirt. He's got like a league cap on. You can see kind of the dirt around the field. And it's not doing that thing where it turns everything to plastic, where even in bright sunlight, you're seeing a noise reduction pass smooth everything over. I I feel like that's one of the dead giveaways on phone footage, is it makes everything look kind of plastic. So you can go through and you can disable beauty filters, but it's still doing a noise reduction pass. I want the grain. The grain makes this look like a movie. This is what kills me, is like you can watch a movie streaming. You get like a 1080p stream of a movie and it looks fine. And then you'll get like a 1080p Blu-ray and it looks better, but you can see all the film grain. You can see all the noise. Then you get like one of those beautifully restored 4K transfers, and movies look like movies. The Vivo in bright sunlight, like the texture of the skin on his face, like the out of focus elements, but the kind of like separation between him and the fences and the backdrop, and home plate is just over his shoulder, and there's a grit to it. You're at a ballpark. That grit like looks correct. It looks better, that you're capturing something that, I don't know, it's got texture to it. It's got graininess to it. There's a feel. And that's the thing that if you get nothing else from my book or my camera reviews or my video discussions or anything like that, it's like there is something cool about having software that can do this pass and get rid of things that might be distracting in your image. So if I shoot RAW from my mirrorless camera and I take that RAW file and I just look at that RAW file, it's not a very nice image. There's a ton of information, it's ready to be edited, but it's not on its own the image that I would share. So something might be distracting, like the speckle of chroma noise. Yeah, that's actually kind of undesirable. I don't love that quality in a RAW image. I will tell software, let's clean some of that out. But what I'll do to balance that is say, let's leave the luminance, the lumen noise, and we'll have all this grain in the image, but we won't have that color speckle, which is distracting. But I have all of the clarity, all of the texture, the wrinkles, the freckles, the shape of the face, the way that like lips move around teeth. All of that is still going to be preserved because I am keeping some noise, and that noise that helps define the contrast and the detail and the little articulations of someone's face. Here's a phone camera that's doing that. Here's a phone camera in a little bit broader than a head and shoulder shot. Like I'm kind of halfway in between like a cowboy and a head and shoulder. He kept moving around. He was kind of nervous. So I would set up the camera. I would really lock it down for something a little wider, and then he'd like step into frame. And you're like, oh, okay, I'm gonna give you a haircut here. Let me back this off. And then I way backed it off, knowing that he would kind of approach. And it was just really cute. This is a man who does not put himself on camera, but it looks so good, and it looks correct. It looks like what you would want ballpark footage to look like. It looks like the kind of feel and graininess that you would see in a really good Kevin Costner baseball movie. And he's talking about softball, and he sounds like a coach, and he looks, and it's like, man, this just makes me happy. Those are the kinds of experiences if I can hope to share an experience with using an exceedingly expensive phone with some good cameras on it, that's what you can bring to the table. It has a tangible impact and a noticeable difference in the quality, the feel, and the texture of the shot. And we don't talk about stuff like that. There's an aesthetic. And I hate that that word has kind of been manhandled. The aesthetic. Oh, it's for an aesthetic. The aesthetic. No, you want something that looks more like a movie. That's where you want to care about that kind of processing and delivery. The file that you get out of this is going to contribute to the tone, the feel, the look, the character of what you're trying to shoot, not just is it got the best HDR colors. Is it getting rid of all the grain? Does everything look like plastic? Well, the noise reduction is so much better. What about the stabilization? iPhones have the best stabilization. I guess. Like, because they don't have the best depth of field, they don't have the best dynamic range, and we just got opcodes on the Vivo. So now I finally got myself signed in. Like I said, I finally got myself signed in on the beta for motion cam, and I want to see, like, when I enable DCG, what does that do to the low light processing? Because the grain, the noise, the character is still there, but does that give me like 2 more stops of dynamic range when I go to like 12-bit or 14-bit videos? Pretty neat. It's pretty great. From Goat V8, it's funny that DAPs and digital cameras are making a comeback, because now you have to split up what your phone was able to do in one package. And also just that, like, I feel like phones are kind of on the decline. We were just talking on the private Discord that there have been all of these analysts and conversations and rumors that, like, the cost of a bigger camera sensor is now being impacted by the different labs that fab memory chips. So when you have these situations where, like, RAM and storage prices are skyrocketing, that is still also putting pressure on all of the rest of the markets that make these other components, like camera sensors. So camera sensors are primed to get even more expensive. Well, that means I bet more companies next year will probably be looking at solutions where they can scale back. Maybe they need to go down a camera sensor size for their Pro. Maybe they need to go down a camera sensor size for their Ultra. They've got to find ways that they can save money, because these companies are definitely allergic to the idea of, well, this was a phone that cost $1,400 in 2026, and for us to keep the same level of capability, now it's going to be an $1,800 phone. It's already a tough call, right? You already had so many fewer people purchasing at $1,400 because they didn't understand what the value was. You just said, oh, it's an Ultra and it's this, and oh, and aren't most phone cameras basically the same, and don't iPhones have the best cameras and video? And you can't get out there and get ahead of that messaging. So you kind of shot yourself in the foot. And especially for all these manufacturers that are trying to make their phones look more like iPhones anyway, you're just telling them, go buy an iPhone. And Apple can weather that because they weren't at the bleeding edge of camera hardware tech. So I guess if you downgrade a Vivo or a Xiaomi or an Oppo next year, and you basically just deliver the iPhone camera sensors again, it's comparable to the iPhone, so it must be good enough, right? But for anyone who cared about this stuff, that would be a noticeable downgrade on a Xiaomi. That would be a noticeable downgrade on a Vivo, on an Oppo. And we can't get around that because we don't really educate consumers on what this stuff can do. From Ted, I hate it when my talent squints. I don't need you to look at the sun. Heck, I don't even need you to see. Just keep your eyes open. I am terrible. You'll notice, like, whenever I shoot outside, I immediately put on sunglasses. I can't. I'm really bad at it. And I felt like my buddy here did a really good job. But I lined up that shot, so it wasn't like noon. It was like kind of 2 in the afternoon. So the sun was already at a slight angle, and I was able to keep the sun on his back. So that's a backlit shot. When I show this and you see like how rich the background looks, and like I didn't do a ton of editing. I did just a little shadow lift to kind of help with under the brim of his hat. I'm not the best editor and color grader. That's not what I do well. But like, this is backlit. This is a backlit shot from the Vivo X300 Ultra. That 35 millimeter sensor, the sensor behind that 35 millimeter lens is really good. It's like the range of light and color with him being backlit and then like the beautiful sunlit hills behind him and the white fluffy clouds that aren't blown out. And I'm definitely a stop up just to kind of keep him better lit. Yeah, man. I I brought out like bounce cards. I had a little LED panel. I pulled one of the panels that I light this podcast from. Had all this extra stuff, and I got him under the natural light. A cloud passed over the sun, and I was like, "This is perfect. Let's just shoot this." And we pushed record. He knocked out his speech in like 60 seconds, and we were done. Like, dude was one take. It was brilliant. I loved it. Let me get this out of the way here. So I did want to spend a little time. We've got some news. Like there were some AI stories. We were just like I was just saying. This is the article I was pulling it from mt.co.kr. This is a report, an analyst's report. AI that is absorbing up to mobile RAM smartphone value will rise further. This is a terrible translation of an article that was published in Korea. But basically, what they're talking about are manufacturers like Samsung. They make memory, but this is putting heavier constraints on the other components they make. And then companies like Sony are, we might be seeing the next generation of Sony Xperia phones will lose a significant amount of money unless Sony either radically cuts costs or radically increases costs, or radically increases prices. That's what I should say. And this is yet another component of the entire AI race here. Our ability to make things is getting harmed by all of these AI shenanigans that aren't paying off, that aren't growing, that aren't building. We're seeing data center projects on hold, and we're seeing companies say, oh, we're committed to buying all of this RAM and all of this storage, but then they can't. Like OpenAI had to scale way back from their pledge is. They pledged to do these things the end of last year, which put the entire tech industry in turmoil, and then they weren't really able to follow through. Look at Jensen Huang getting like actually kind of defensive and combative in interviews. It's not a good look. But the current state of us being able to make components for a phone is getting hammered, and now companies are seriously looking, how do we cut costs and keep profits high? You got to put worse components in your phone. Now would be a really good time to shop a phone from 2020, 2025. I worry that what we're going to see is over 2027, what we're going to see is an initial bump where people are like, oh, it's the new phone. This is the new phone. Don't you want the new phone? And then we're all going to kind of collectively realize, like, over the last 3 years, the new phone hasn't really gotten better than the phone it replaced. And then I think we're going to see a run on people trying to get good deals for older Ultras, like we were just talking about here in the chat, for older Ultras. And then those prices are going to hike too. So I think it's going to have a scaling effect. Like, I think when we start seeing phones launch in 2027, that will be a good chance to get great deals on refurbs, lightly used, and maybe just older phones that were sitting on shelves. Like if you can get a brand new 2026 Ultra on a sale, that could be good. But then I think by the end of 2027, we're going to see used prices climbing on the phones that really did things different, that were special in some way. I'm sitting on a stockpile of older phones that will probably be a bit more desirable by the end of next year. I don't know, I just think it's kind of funny. Because again, on top of that, we're just seeing the circular impact of AI investments. These investments are starting to face a lot of scrutiny from shareholders and investors. But here's Google dropping another $40 billion into Anthropic. This is written up by Samuel Axon over at Ars Technica. I'll have all of the links and show notes and everything on somegadgetguy.com. But like, what? Why? And I love this headline. So hold on. Let me just backtrack for a second here. Here's the headline. Google will invest as much as 40 billion in Anthropic. What's the first line of the article? Google will invest at least $10 billion in Anthropic, and that amount could rise to 40 billion if Anthropic meets certain performance targets. So it's like a threefold lie in the headline of the article, and usually Ars Technica is better about this kind of stuff. But what is the entire industry hinged on right now? The inflated bubble of AI investments. Not how much money is AI making, but how much money is being passed around all of the AI companies. And that looks like they're doing the business. And if they can throw hundreds of billions of dollars around, we must keep investing in it. The emperor has no clothes. This is going to now become a catastrophic market failure like the housing crisis. We can't even be straight up. The actual commitment is Google will invest at least 10 billion, but maybe as much as 40 billion. So what is the headline? It's not Google will invest at least 10 billion into Anthropic. Google will invest as much as 40 billion. And you see, that's a bigger number. 40 is a bigger number than 10. So that's way more, that's 4 times more exciting. And that's what we're doing with this whole shell game. NVIDIA is going to invest $100 billion into OpenAI. And then they cut that to a third. So we can't even agree on the companies giving each other money. Remember I said during CES, it really feels like all these companies are trying to act like they're post-consumer. It doesn't matter what the consumers do, what they buy, how much they spend. It only matters that Google can give another company $100 billion for them to give that $100 billion right back to Google. It only matters if NVIDIA can give OpenAI $30 billion and then OpenAI announces, we're going to buy $30 billion worth of NVIDIA hardware. So NVIDIA just paid themselves to buy their own hardware. It's not a real market. Show me what profits AI makes. Show me what actual tangible impact is being made in any of the industries that are supposedly getting totally disrupted. No, it's not happening. It's not real. And anyone who says like, oh, but in coding, you get this great stuff out of AI. Like, cool. Are you factoring in the hundreds and hundreds of billions of dollars that have gone into making data centers and training models and buying hardware that can only last for a couple of years before you've got to cycle all the hardware? That hardware really doesn't have a second life. It's basically just e-waste after you're done with that initial run because the industry's moved on and it doesn't make any sense to put electricity to older versions of this kind of hardware. No. There is zero benefit. All of the humans that you could have trained to write better code, yeah, this AI code still doesn't even pay for itself, let alone generate a profit. Oh, but it's just so fun when I can do, yeah, cool, neat. You're having a little bits of funsies, but that's not a business model, a sustainable growth area. You're not getting there. You're just continuing to inflate this speculative bubble on what AI might eventually do 10 years from now with another 1000x increase in compute power that literally can't arrive. Those are the numbers Google gave us. Oh, what we're looking to do over the next 5 years is 1000x our current level of compute performance. Their big announcement today was like, oh, we're introducing these new tensor chips. They're going to be so much better for doing our AI. They're not better chips. They're just chips with double the core configurations. So they just stapled 2 of their tensor units together, and one is going to be now for training and the other is going to be for inference. You didn't make a better chip. You just doubled the electricity costs of the package that you had before. Yo, we could all do that. Let me go, instead of this Threadripper, let me go get a server board with double CPU sockets. Gotta go find a power supply for that, I guess. Isn't it like I've 2x'd my compute power now? Isn't that amazing? No. No, you didn't double your compute power. Well, I mean you did, but you didn't double your performance per watt. You just doubled your performance and doubled the amount of power it needs. It's hilarious. It would be so much funnier if it weren't so damn sad and hurt so many people along the way when this bubble finally does pop. Yeah, I'll open this up. Anyone got an answer for JGJ? Stupid question. Does anyone have a recommendation on a quick video editor, possibly a web app, to make a clip from an international movie into a short meme? I would use LumaFusion. In fact, the last couple times I've done that, I've used LumaFusion. I actually just did this is hilarious. I did an interview, and Restream actually now gives me separate clips, so I can get their video feed and my video feed, and that is very helpful. But they deliver those clips as MKVs that do not play nice with DaVinci Resolve. So I tried converting them in Handbrake, and I don't know what's going on with these videos. The codec is just a mystery to my computer, but Handbrake was not converting these quickly. It was like an hour-long video conversation, and it was going to take like 3 hours with my 4070 Ti to transfer from MKV to MP4. So I put those MKVs in my X200 Pro. Not even like one of the current phones from this year. I had my X200 Pro on the desk, and I thought, hey, let me just give it a shot. It's going to take 3 hours to do this in Handbrake. I don't know. Let's see what a year-old phone can do. And it did both clips in 50 minutes, give or take. So what would have been 3 hours of processing on my Threadripper at 1200 watts, and it's not that. I have a 1200 watt power supply. It would have been a lot of wattage. Was done in 50 minutes at maybe peak power draw of 15 watts on that Dimensity 9400. So I would give LumaFusion the shot. Like, see if you can do that, because I was shocked at how well Luma picked up the MKV. So it's not even, it needs to be a phone style container. Oh, it can only edit MP4s. It's edited MOVs from my mirrorless cameras. It's edited MKVs from streaming sites and from other nefarious packaged video projects. And it'll also handle whatever clips your phone can shoot too. It is surprisingly good. And then you can take that and dump it into something else to create your GIF or whatever you want to do from there. Oh, and Ted is saying Luma just got the ability to export GIF. There is also a meme generator and video and GIF memes, same developer. So definitely check that out. I did not know that Luma could do GIFs. That's good to know. I learned something on my own podcast. Ha. So, how we feeling all about Nintendo? This is one of the last news stories here that I really think we should cover. And it's something that I brought up out of frustration, but it seems like there's someone out there trying to do something about it. This is written up by my man crush, John Brodkin, over at Ars Technica. Lawsuit, : Nintendo is getting tariff refunds, : its customers should get them instead. From the article, two gamers who want tariff refunds sued Nintendo of America yesterday, alleging that the company intends to pocket refunds received from the government instead of giving money back to consumers who paid higher prices. The class action complaint seeks to represent a class, including the two named plaintiffs and all other U.S. residents who bought Nintendo products from February of 2025 to February of 2026. And this has been a running theme. So many people, regardless of political ideology, regardless of whether you're red or blue or left or right, We've all seen prices skyrocket over the last year because our current presidential administration is greedy and incompetent. So when all those prices and tariffs hit, all of the costs of that were passed on to the end people buying the stuff. So now those tariffs were deemed illegal, that the president didn't have the authority to just tack tariffs on the way that he did. And so now the government is responsible for fielding refunds on those tariffs because they were bad policy. They were always bad policy, and anyone who supported tariffs was an idiot. This is one of those things. I need you to pay attention. Were you listening to people last year who were trying in any way to make arguments that tariffs would be a good idea? That is someone you need to immediately mute, block, and never listen to ever again. No one with half a brain in their head was in favor of this tariff policy from the Trump administration. Only idiots were. And people who have large megaphones but were still idiots, don't keep giving them traffic, even if it's outrage traffic or even if you're laughing at them. It just emboldens their idiocy in their business model. But anyway, I digress. We as consumers paid for all those price increases. Now the companies are going to the government saying, well, the tariffs were illegal. We should get paid back for the increased costs of the tariffs. Except that they already had the tariffs paid for because they passed the costs onto the consumer. And a bunch of businesses, I'm sure, are going to go out there and say, well, we would have made X amount of profit on this, so we made less profit and passed some of the tariff costs, but not all of the tariff costs onto the consumers. So we should get a refund on the costs that we absorbed to keep our profit margins higher. And I feel that is still a BS argument to make. And it also means that taxpayers, because the government has to refund the tariff, that means that money comes from taxpayers. So we paid for the tariff in increased costs when we bought things, and then we're paying again to refund the companies because of the tariffs. That's a double dip. So what these gamers are claiming is, until Nintendo recoups and refunds the increased prices that we would have paid on these products. Remember, the original Switch 1 increased in price. It got more expensive. This thing is an ancient gaming console that is ruthlessly outclassed by mid-ranger phones now today, and instead of dropping in price, instead of getting more affordable, Nintendo raised the price on the Switch. There is no, oh, well, we met our customers halfway. We still paid more for an ancient piece of tech. If you bought a Nintendo Switch over the last 2 years, you were already seeing a trend. It was getting cheaper, getting cheaper, getting cheaper. Trump gets into office. We got to charge more. We don't know what's going to happen with the tariffs. So I hope we see more of this. Any company that is out there, hat in hand, doing a grabby hand motion to the federal government asking for more monies, please, needs to get sued like crazy. And I know it's going to be, oh, but that just means that the lawyers are going to get the money. I don't care. I don't want it to go to the companies that raised prices on us and then are trying to make additional money from our tax dollars because they raised prices on us. There were some, like, I was a little disappointed in how Costco handled the initial news reporting on tariffs because they sought refunds. But at the same time, it's not like my $1.50 hot dog at Costco ever got more expensive. There were some companies that were at least trying. This was always our loss leader. It's costing us more. It's still going to be our loss leader. Please continue doing business with our company. There are a whole bunch of other things the price is raised on, but a slice of pizza is still $2. Okay, I have a slightly different feel about that than I do Nintendo. because Nintendo took an old console and jacked up the price. And jacked up the price so much, well, wouldn't you rather just get a Switch 2 instead? It's so close in price now. And that to me is horrifically cynical. And I feel Nintendo deserves to be punished for ratcheting their most loyal customers. But again, you have to get those customers caring about it. When Apple hurts their own customers the worst, you have to get Apple diehards to care. Ditto here. Nintendo diehards have to care that their favorite gaming brand took advantage of them. And that's tough. That's a really hard hill to climb there. Oh yeah, a bunch of people are talking like, well, tariffs can do this, and tariffs, there can be good policy around tariffs. Like, that's all academic. What do we have in office right now? Do we have a master strategist who's looking at the global economy and is able to pull levers to really get policy that's going to help the American people? No, we don't. let's let's save the academic debate for the reality of what happened to us over the last year, and how, regardless of what transpired, his policy was roughshod and illegal. Courts deemed those tariffs not legal. So anything that we might say in regards to, oh, but if this and you invest in that and you pull from this and this sector can do, no, that's not what happened. And now we have to deal with the fallout and the increased costs of illegal tariffs. No one, no one over the last year was looking at Trump's plans and saying, hey, there's some good, sound economic strategy here, except for idiots. Tariffs can absolutely be leveraged in a much more responsible way that can get a benefit for the industry that they're trying to goose. I'll go with you on that. Anyone who was saying that about Trump is a flipping moron. No. Don't water it down. Don't give even an inkling of a crowbar, of a hair, of a crack, of a possibility to explain, but we just didn't think it would get this bad. Everyone who had a brain in their heads, a functional computing lump of gray matter, was telling anyone who would listen, this is not gonna be a good idea. That's the narrative we have to stick with. And we have to keep the memory long, because it seems convenient how whenever Trump does something utterly catastrophic to one of his businesses or to the country, it's like we get outraged for a second and then we forget. Or we think, oh, but no one thought he was really going to do this, except for he was telling everyone he was going to do this. And then we just roll over till the next calamity because it's probably only 12 hours away. Never let them backtrack and rewrite the history on this. Don't let them do it. Wrapping us up here, I really thought I was going to dedicate more time to this, and I kind of realized, like, I just don't know that I care that much. This is really sad to me. Apple was one of these companies, and I've shared this anecdote and these stories a number of times on this podcast, but like, I was a crazy, ruthless Apple sheep in the era of the IBM Power PC, the dual core, dual socket Power Macs. Before they were the Mac Pro, that gorgeously designed G5 Power Mac it just blew my mind. And I was an Apple product specialist for a government contract, did JIT sales. I would sometimes have my hands in the guts of these machines as we would customize and configure them for the labs in New Mexico. Just far and away, I was Apple guy. I was obnoxious and insufferable on like chat forums and stuff. Like, I loved these machines. I still toy with the idea of just getting an old G5 case and building a new PC inside of it. Again, there's that sense memory of it. When Steve Jobs stepped down, I shared thoughts on, well, actually, and when Steve Jobs passed, that Steve Jobs had become my favorite nemesis. I feel like Apple walked away from me in what I cared about and what I thought was important, and their pivot. I think they correctly nailed the timing. Their pivot towards a more consumer focused and less professional business focused platform portfolio of products. I felt like they left me in the lurch when they switched to Intel. You were still paying these premiums, but now you had machines that were much closer in configuration, design, and performance to like what I could get from a Dell or from an HP. Still had a beautiful aesthetic to it, but that matters a lot less to me. They walked away from Xserve. They walked away from their RAID arrays. They had all of these like incredible high performance professional grade systems, and the labs used to buy these systems like crazy. You could do these really cool things in the Apple ecosystem with their professional grade stuff. And now it's like they've completely retired that idea of pro. Like the Mac Pro has been retired, and Mac Studio isn't it. That's not what I want out of a professional grade computing box. I want something for professionals. I want something that can get work done and be upgraded. Like what Apple is doing now sort of, again, further walks away from what I used to respect from the label. So Steve Jobs steps down, Tim Cook takes over, and Steve Jobs passes away. And I remember kind of sharing some emotional reactions to that where I felt like we were losing the computing nemesis. Steve Jobs was the most fun nemesis to have if you were a PC fan, if you used Windows or Android or any of the other, back when we had competition, if you were a BlackBerry fan, man, we lost something special when Steve Jobs stepped down. Every single time Steve Jobs would show off a new product, I'd scoff and I'd smirk and, oh, Apple's finally catching up to that. Good for them. But there would always be one thing in there. It was almost never the and one more thing, but there'd always be just some announcement or some tangent or some support or some quip. And I would leave that keynote like burning, like, yeah, most of what they said, crap. I'm still going to stick with my custom built PC rigs, but man, they said one thing and I really wish I had that. Oh, I really wish I had that. It was the nemesis. It made the competition between computing brands more aggressive and more fun. And that is absolutely not what we had in the Tim Cook era of Apple. Tim Cook is an operations guy. He's really good at negotiating strategies to get better manufacturing. He's really good at tying up chip manufacturers so that competitors can't be on the same nodes that Apple is paying for. He's a politician. Tim Cook is one of the best politicians of the modern era. He was the CEO of Apple. He was also the prime minister of Apple. And he was tactically efficient at walking into government meetings with governments around the world to get what he wanted for his country, Apple. Not the United States. The United States is not his country. Apple is his country. He was one of the best politicians of the modern era. I think I just said that. So Tim Cook is stepping down as CEO of Apple, and he's going to take like a board role. We have a new, we have a new CEO coming in who's from the hardware team, and I just don't have any. I don't have any strong feelings like, oh, I'm gonna miss Tim Cook. Oh, like he really did this, and I thought it was really clever and special. Tim Cook was ruthlessly antagonistic and also initiated policy at Apple that hurt Apple consumers. It's under Tim Cook's reign that we saw the most divisive commentary arriving on things like iMessage. When you go through and you see the court filings on antitrust and anti-competitive business practices, you had a whole bunch of Apple executives and engineers saying, we could make iMessage into a platform like BBM, and it would be a constant revenue stream, and people would pay us just to have a better messaging platform that could work across all these different devices. And it was Apple, it was Tim Cook and a couple of the executives under Tim Cook's purview that decided no, the problem is if you let iMessage show up on an Android, well, families might be able to buy less expensive phones for their kids. Can't have that. I'm paraphrasing. These are the tone of the actual communications between Apple executives. It's bad for Apple if someone can use a less expensive phone to fulfill their communication needs for their kids. We need the diehard Apple consumers out there to pay more for this kind of service. So instead of making it like it was kind of pitched, iMessage could have been this thing. There was work at Apple to make it cross-platform. Could have been like BBM. Nope, can't have that. Gotta squeeze people even more for the purchases that they make, and you've got to put more pressure on families, and you've got to instill this bullying behavior, this cult-like behavior. Let's really make those differences profound. If you get a message from an Android, it's gonna break all of these things on our phone. They built the phones to break. They built the messaging to break when someone else from another phone manufacturer tries to communicate with an iPhone. The problem was never the other phone. It wasn't the Windows phone, it wasn't the Android phone. The problem was the iPhone. But you can make it look like everyone else is the problem and we're the little cool club. It is divisive bullying by design. And if that's not enough, we get later into things like I still need to look up, I forget the name of the executive who perjured himself. I need to look him up and see, like, was there any actual ramification for his actions there? But like the payments, the payment processing on iPhones, they're now trying, we talked about this, like, I think it was last week. They're trying to go back and appeal the judgment against them from that Epic case again. And it could end up before the Supreme Court. But Apple lost this 1 point against Epic in how the iPhone is supposed to manage alternative app stores and alternative payments. So that, let's say, I'm on Patreon. If you pay for my Patreon on an iPhone through Apple's payment services, it's going to cost you more. I'm not going to eat those costs. You can go to patreon.com in a web browser and do all of the payments through that, and it's going to be cheaper for you. I'm going to ask you to meet me halfway. You'll pay less by making this tiny little effort to use a web browser instead of an app. Great? Are we cool? I think that's cool. If you want to use the app and use Apple's payments, that's out of my control. I can't help you, but I'm not going to subsidize your app usage. You can pay more to field Apple's increased costs on payments. Apple does nothing to facilitate the relationship or make Patreon a better service. The only thing they do is get in the way and make it more difficult and then charge you more just by being a gatekeeper. So when Apple got tagged for that in court, Tim Cook said, okay, well, we'll allow alternative payments, but you need to audit your app and then still give us a cut. And everyone around Tim Cook said, that's a bad idea. Phil Schiller said, don't do that. And Tim Cook said, do it. And then the courts immediately savaged Apple for absolutely betraying the judgment on what they were supposed to be doing with alternative payments. And they've done this time and time and time again. The Tim Cook era is rife with examples of breaking standards, breaking interoperability, making their product more exclusive while using technology and foundation that is broadly accessible. They'll take Bluetooth and break it so that their phones have specific features that can't be replicated. They'll take Wi-Fi and break it so that you can't easily communicate with other devices. They'll take USB and break it so you can't plug an Android into a MacBook and easily transfer files. And then they'll loophole and maliciously comply with every regulatory decision. Oh, we really want to standardize on this one connector. Everyone should use this one connector to, reduce e-waste and make chargers more compatible. And Apple will say, well, according to the exact legal letter of this, if we just sell an adapter, then we're in compliance. And the EU goes, okay, isn't that way worse? Because now you've got all these little adapters from like the Lightning era. And that's all just more e-waste. And eventually Apple had to comply and dragged kicking and screaming into supporting RCS, utilizing actual standards, like the full standard of Wi-Fi, not breaking Wi-Fi so only iPhones can airdrop to other iPhones. Like that's all regulatory policy. The Tim Cook era is break everything, make it more expensive, fix what we broke by making people pay more, and then advertise market, and make everybody feel like you're in this little club, even though they're a $3 trillion market cap company. Still keep hammering. You remember when Apple was the little plucky upstart? You don't want to rein in Apple now. Oh no, it's just, you got to let them be creative and you got to let them be, experimental and funky. It's Apple. And I'm glad he's leaving. I keep this video. It's unlisted on my YouTube. This was during, the COVID lockdowns. The congressional testimony before the U.S. House Antitrust Subcommittee in July of 2020, and I cut up just the Tim Cook moments. And Tim Cook's under oath, and he gets questions about the App Store policy that we later discovered in the Epic trial. His answers aren't lies, but they're not true. And he'll make these comments, things like, oh, there's no culture of bullying at Apple, except Apple could steal intellectual property from hardware manufacturers and put it into the Apple Watch and just sell the Apple Watch at scale. And then when they get caught and they are found in court to have stolen the IP of another manufacturer, Tim Cook sent lobbyists like crazy into DC. And now we're having legitimate conversations about whether or not we can even patent medical technology because it benefits the Apple Watch. That's the legacy Tim Cook leaves. A ruthless politician who had no problems hurting his most loyal customers to make Apple the most financially successful company on the planet. He was the most effective politician of the modern era. And I mean that with all of the bile and venom that I can put into that phrase. For however lowly you think of politicians, if they're Democrat or Republican, Tim Cook is the best of them. And I'm glad he's gone. I want to celebrate an era of technology where products were cool and competition was fun and consumers were getting the best out of every dollar they spent on their tech. And that is the exact opposite of what Tim Cook helped to create. I have nothing else to say about him that won't just be me getting actually legit angry and mean. Whoever's coming in now, I hope he's coming from the hardware division, this new CEO. I know there's still going to be a lot of Tim Cook influence felt for like the next 2 years, but like outside of their chips, like the A series and M series chips, there's not much to showcase that Tim Cook really drove as an initiative that did things well. We're still rumoring about Apple maybe making smart glasses. That's 13 years of talking about Apple smart glasses someday, and miss me with Vision Pro. I said that looks like an overly expensive dev kit that no one's going to use. I don't know. I feel I was right. I got into it with some tech pals who should have known better. People actually calling me out, like back when I was still on Twitter, but like, Juan, you say you care about innovation, and isn't this so much better? And you're like, it's barely an evolution over HoloLens. And we all savaged HoloLens What are we doing? Oh, this is so much better than HoloLens. Is it? I don't think it is. I feel when we really test the market bore out Vision Pro, not it. Not the savior for VR that all of these tech pundits were saying it was going to be. And so Tim Cook gets to leave with a nice little win that I'm excited. You know, there's a MacBook Neo at a time where PC components and pricing are skyrocketing. And like I would hold up the Lenovo Chromebook. That MediaTek powered Chromebook is a great competitor to the Neo, except now it's like $150 more than when it launched, which means it's like a $900 computer going up against the Neo at like $600. That's not a good buy anymore. Apple lucked out that their phone chip was good enough to do this stuff, and they timed it perfect. So Tim Cook gets to go out with a little pat on the back, a little feather in his cap. He got one last good dig in there by actually being the price responsible solution in a budget laptop conversation. Blows my mind. But I can't go with anyone on this like, oh, and he was just so successful. He you know, Steve Jobs, Apple was successful, but Tim Cook turned them into a juggernaut. And you're like, yeah, much like we should be way more critical of people who become billionaires. That's not good for society. I think we need to be a lot more critical of companies that become trillion-dollar market cap companies. They have to be doing things that are not benefiting society. So also, I'll add this in the show notes. If anyone wants the link, it is so quaint going back to July of 2020 and listening to Tim Cook defend Apple's business practices and like make these assertions. There is no developer bullying happening at Apple, while behind the scenes he's talking to his other executives and saying, rake those companies. They want off-app payments. They don't want to do payments through Apple's payment processing. We still get a cut. It's 30% if you go through Apple payments. It's 27% if you try to go it alone. And how can you tell a congressional subcommittee we don't bully developers when you get a judgment like that in the Epic case and you absolutely bully developers? And those conversations were happening behind the scenes at Apple well before the Epic case came to its conclusion. That is right up to the definition of what I would consider an example of perjury. And that's the kind of guy Tim Cook was. So I feel like that's where we wrap up this podcast. Well, let me take a little drink of coffee here. I know I got a couple comments here. I'm sorry, guys. I really wanted to make that just more the, hey, I miss when Apple was a fun nemesis, but then I got all started on Tim Cook, and it just, you know, it's all marketing. It's all advertising. This guy isn't like, oh, this nice, kindly, grandfatherly kind of guy. No, he's a ruthless dictator in his own right. Oh man, I'm going back a few of these. Oh, okay, so Democrats still talking about NAFTA. Well, I don't think we need to go that far back. Wow, yeah, Michael C2, some really good comments. If you all want to go back and read through the chat, there's some really good stuff here. From Sue Olin, man, I remember making a Hackintosh and running Mac OS on bare metal back when they went Intel. Crazy fun times as a tech nerd person. I did not live in a Hackintosh, but I did. I built one up with a friend, and it was a fun project. It's that thing, though. It's like, I understand all the ire that Windows gets, and I'm ready. I'm pretty much there. There are just a couple little teeny things that I have to boot into Windows to accomplish, not because I couldn't do them on Linux, but just because the momentum, it's easier right now on Windows. And I am so close to leaving Windows behind. Like, in much the same way, I was just complaining about Tim Cook and Apple. I feel like Microsoft is kind of walking away from what I feel is important in high end desktop, in high performance computing. And then I pick up my Steam Deck and go, heck yes, why wouldn't more PC gamers want this experience? It's so much cleaner. And you get so much more out of that hardware than having to deal with the overhead of Windows. So yeah, it's a rough spot to be. But the tinkering was fun back then. It's just a shame because now there is no alternative. If you want a Mac OS experience, if you want an iOS experience, you can't get it anywhere else. So they do legitimately have a monopoly on those markets. Darcy, yep, Tim Cook really maximized those profits. Like I said, I don't think you can get to being a trillion-dollar corporation unless you're doing things that are not good for society. I don't think that's a controversial statement to make, and I think it fits in very well with all of the corporations that are hitting that trillion-dollar market cap. I'm not saying my trillionaire is better than your trillionaire. I'm saying that's all bad. From Ted, that was Craig Federici. They wanted to keep a roadblock between school kids and their parents in the emails. Tim's fingerprints was all over the App Store walled garden that bullied developers over pricing. It wasn't his fingerprints, it was his outright executive decisions and the teams that he wasn't listening to. So I keep pointing to guys like Schiller. Phil Schiller actually is kind of this beating heart of Apple that if they'd listened to him, I think they still would have been just as successful, but they would have had an even bigger footprint over services sooner than they did. And I think Schiller would have brought an equity to computing and a dignity to computing that Tim Cook was pretty hell-bent on stopping. That to me becomes that I'm reading the tea leaves, I'm looking from the outside in. I don't have any internal information, any stake in this. And I feel like that's the optics of it when I'm just doing my little armchair quarterbacking, here on the side. I feel like Schiller consistently is brought up in these conversations as a voice of reason that is ignored. Because what if we can squeeze people for a little more money? Oh, from Kenox80, I've heard Intel Macs are losing support soon. I wonder how it'll affect the Hackintosh market. There really isn't much of one left, right? Especially now that we've made this transition into ARM chips. That is one of the drawbacks. Like, I look at my Windows Surface laptop here. There are definitely drawbacks to using ARM for consumer computing devices. I wish I could look at more of these systems and say, hey, you can still upgrade RAM, right? I can pop the SSD. That's still kind of cool. I can't do that on a MacBook. I can't do that on a Mac Mini. But we're definitely ratcheting in and ratcheting down all the things that you can do. So that is a trade-off. But I feel like so many of the Apple enthusiast communities it's kind of like in Android land when you have people who like to flash different ROMs. That is still a small, vibrant, enthusiast community. Lots of people care about bootloaders and ROMs and unlocking and hacking and customizing. That's still a tiny little pocket niche. But the visibility of that in the conversation has definitely dropped a lot. And so for things like Hackintosh, that has definitely dropped a lot. And it's going to be even more difficult when so much of the code is purpose built specifically only for this narrow range of hardware configurations. How do you get Apple Silicon in a box that you build? You kind of can't. So can you replicate that with emulation or with another? By the time you jump through all those hoops and you solve all those problems, it's kind of not worth trying to roll a Hackintosh again. It's just, I guess you just land those few people left who, why? Because I can. not, this was actually kind of a fun project that delivered a useful computer at the end of this. This is a nightmare-inducing headache of hoop jumping, and I did get to an end computer, but it absolutely wasn't worth the effort that we put into it. Oh, Steve Pogue. Yeah, I actually did want to talk about this. I'm gonna leave it linked in the show notes. But Valve just announced the Steam controller this morning. Review embargoes are lifting. It'll launch on May for $99. I love the design of the Steam controller. I love the layout on the Steam Deck. I'm not gonna buy one because I have a Steam Deck and I have way too many other controllers. But I like that it's a little more PlayStation-like. My all-time favorite controller is the PS4 controller, and I like the symmetrical joysticks. I know a lot of people disagree with me, and I have a bunch of Xbox style controllers too, and they're fine. But I really like the Steam Deck and PS4 versions of symmetrical sticks and the way that you interact with like bumpers and triggers and stuff. So Steam controller looks great. If you're considering, I would highly recommend checking one out. $100 sounds great for that kind of hardware, that kind of experience. I love the touchpads on the Steam Deck. They are so nice. So yeah, I think that's a fun one. I'm still horrifically anxious about what Frame is going to cost if and when it launches, hopefully later this year. Oh, Michael C2, I wish I'd bought a Steam Deck LCD in December when they were like $250 brand new from Valve for the 256 gig. That was such a good buy. So I still have the launch LCD. I still need to replace the fan. I hate the fan that they used on those initial launch LCD Steam Decks. But it bugs me, but not enough for me to crack it open. But I spent probably too much getting one at launch. I don't make a lot of content on handhelds just because I like gaming and I don't want to turn gaming totally into another side hustle. But man, when those things were 250, they were such good buys, and now they're getting increasingly expensive again. Like it's harder to get a really good Steam Deck in good condition and not at a price that I think is ridiculous now. Because they're also just a little underpowered compared to some of the other handhelds. But like an Asus is going to be $1,000. That Steam Deck LCD at a quarter of the price is a really good buy. Oh, Kevin Pitts just jumping in to say hi while traveling. I'm glad you were able to drop by. And then Tangential Tesseract for Tinkerers. Linux is going to be easier and more functional than a Hackintosh anyhow. So, lots coming to the channel still. I'm still in this mental block, and I've got some stuff I really want to show off, and I'm gonna work like crazy to kick my own bottom and get more of these videos out. But I really do need to kind of focus on some writing. And some of these things need to be written reviews instead of videos. This snap broke my heart because I think this is such a cool little accessory, but I probably would have gotten more traffic if I had written a review and published that instead. So I don't know. It's getting real ugly out there. I'm glad I have y'all along for the ride. Again, this is one of those rambling pajama podcasts. We didn't really have a tight order of show, and actually viewership was up over last week where I felt we had more to really focus in and talk about. So be on the lookout. I've got a Vivo comparison coming out soon. I'm going to do Vivo 300 Pro versus 300 Ultra, and that's really hard to stage fairly. And then I've got a triple screen laptop, a rugged tablet, more headphones. I have so many headphones. I am way behind on covering. And along the way, I'm going to get my hands on an Oppo at some point. More work. But really fun stuff to dig into, to talk about. And I'm hoping we can share these experiences beyond just, I took it out of the box and here is a selfie photo, and here's a whole comparison where I selfie photo 4 different phones. Isn't that amazing? But what do you think? Do you think it is good that a new product is out and is better than the product it replaces? Drop a comment down below. But what do you think? I just don't get it. I don't get what YouTube has become because I really didn't want that. So folks, I'm gonna leave you on that bummer. Pajama podcast, yay! Have a great week. Do awesome with your technology. Be awesome with your technology. I'll catch you back here next week for another episode of the Monday Morning Tech Chat Show on the SGGQA podcast channel. Be safe. It's wild out there. Take care of yourselves. Take care of your mental health so that you can keep being the amazing tech neighbor your friends and family need and probably don't fully appreciate. But I appreciate you, so keep it up. All of us here in chats like these, I feel like we're probably going to fail. I feel like we probably won't win, but man, let's keep the ship afloat and let's go down trying. I think it matters more that we don't contribute to the boat going down. We got our little tin cups and we're trying to bail everyone out. Maybe the wishful, hopeful, heart on my sleeve will make that difference. I know we can contribute to a better outcome. And I'll catch you back next week. I love you all. Be safe. Take care.